And greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcasts. Happy Monday to all of you. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. Coming up on today's show for the first time in 2026, it'll be your turn to ask me anything next hour, and then we're going to be joined by our good friend Bob Vander Plaats for the first time here at the bottom of the hour as well. But you know what? There is a ton going on. So without further ado, let's just get right to it. Here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by the busiest of weekends. We'll begin at the White House, where President Trump welcomed basically every major oil and gas company executive to discuss what's next with Venezuela.
The plan is for them to spend at least $100 billion to rebuild the capacity and the infrastructure necessary. Venezuela has also agreed that the United States will immediately begin refining and selling up to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan crude oil.
By the way, according to a post shared by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the U.S. allegedly deployed some sort of sonic weapon during its operation in Venezuela, causing enemy soldiers to vomit blood and nosebleed. From Venezuela to Greenland and now Mexico.
We are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country.
In Iran, protests continue now into their third week around the country. Reportedly, the regime has been stifling internet and even Starlink communications, making reports out of the country extremely difficult. Estimates suggest regime forces have murdered between 500 and 2,000 protesters in recent days. Back at home, a group of pro-Hamas orcs invaded a predominantly Jewish neighborhood in New York City over the weekend, chanting threatening slogans. This is, we think for now, what prompted a marked change in tone regarding Hamas from prominent New York Democrats, from state officials like Kathy Hochul, congressional officials like AOC, and even down to Zoran Mamdani, who all pointedly decried Hamas over the weekend. In Portland, Oregon, breathless coverage late in the day on Thursday over a Customs and Border Patrol shooting incident. The story was described basically as some CBP officers randomly opening fire on a husband and wife. The real story is that an illegal alien gang member and his prostitute tried to ram their car into CBP officers who opened fire in defense. Portland Police Chief Bob Day was so disappointed about the reality of the situation that he cried.
I want to speak for just a moment specifically to my Latino community. It saddens me that we even have to qualify these remarks, because I understand, or at least have attempted to understand through your voices, your concern, your fear, your anger.
In Minneapolis, the libtards are not all right.
We have to show up with guns. We have to. There's no other way around it.
And don't tell me this isn't a religious experience. Some woman showed up to the memorial site of Renee Good in some sort of weird feathery pagan headdress and performed some sort of ritual. Brian Cole Jr., the man the FBI says planted the pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC facilities on January 5th, 2021, and whom the FBI says confessed to his actions, is pleading not guilty. According to Axios, the feud between the White House and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has gone from bitter to toxic, with the outlet reporting the administration referred Greene to the Secret Service, claiming she leaked the president's planned movements to the communist protest group Code Pink, who then showed up to a restaurant where Trump made a surprise appearance and heckled him. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell announced last night he's the target of a federal investigation regarding statements he made to Congress pertaining to the construction of a new $3 billion Federal Reserve headquarters. Powell says the investigation is purely political. The United Arab Emirates has canceled funding for its citizens who want to study abroad in the United Kingdom, fearing said citizens will become radicalized by the Muslim Brotherhood at UK universities. And finally, we go back to Minneapolis. Here's Laura Ingram.
Shame! Shame!
Do you have a job?
To the human race.
Do you have a job?
Shame! Shame! I'm getting paid right now.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Indeed, you are. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Ghost Bed. Have you heard of being micro-tired? It's that feeling when things kind of slow down in your brain and it tells you to take a nap, but of course you don't have time, and on and on and on. That's because of your lack of sleep quality. So do what we just did. All right, our son getting ready to launch, needed a new bed. They said, hey, why don't you try this out? I'm like, you know what? He's even more cynical than me. Let's try this Ghost Bed out on him. Well, we can report they've had over 60,000 glowing reviews. Well, now you can add one because Noah has been a big fan of his ghost bed and its cooling features that are in every mattress that help to adjust your body temperature as well, so you're not too hot or too cold all night long, comfortable all night long. And if you don't love your mattress from Ghost Bed, return it for free and get your money back. All right, they're giving you the best deal of the year plus an extra 10% when you use my code Steve at ghostbed.com/Steve. Again, that's ghostbed.com/Steve using the promo code Steve to get that extra 10% off. They're already great deals they offer every day. The prices, they're incredible. Ghostbed.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve. All right, let's get through as much of this montage as we possibly can. Let's go back to front because I think those will get through quicker. Okay. The headline from the United Arab Emirates, I did not believe that was real. I mean, I thought that was a Babylon
same
Bee
reaction.
thing.
Yeah.
And I had to verify it, and then I saw that Vice President Vance sent it out. And yeah, it's real.
And spectacular?
It is unspectacular. Not spectacular. Spooky. Okay. But, towards the end of last year, I started drawing a distinction a bit between Muslim and Arab. Right? That Trump clearly has discovered through his business dealings, in that part of the world, going back decades to before he became president, that just as we have a lot of people that, pretend to be Jewish, but then have been until recently posting how great Hamas is, okay, on the Democratic side, and a bunch of people on the Republican side who claim to be Christian, but then can't be counted on when it's time to stand for Christ. It's just all,
it's called the Mike Pence experience.
Yeah, it's just a pandering experience to a base of people to get their support, right? Okay. That this existed in the Arab world where Islam was concerned as well. And there's plenty of, sinners within the Arab world that are craven men just like anybody else. And they would love to have larger harems and more amusement parks to take their concubines and side pieces and the various children they have therein to these great experiences of the West. But were they really able to do it without, their palaces getting bombed by the crazies next, right? Okay, and I think we've learned, now, there is some level of nuance to Arab and Muslim. And what you're watching right now, what's often referred to as Qatari influence peddling, is I think the government of Qatar is trying to buy into that. I think the government of Qatar started doing the math in the last year after Trump took over and thought, yeah, maybe being aligned with that Iran thing, that's not the stock to buy, not the stock to own right now, right? And so they have been trying to buy their way into the Saudi, United Arab Emirates, Jordanian, Egyptian Arab alliance that we have with these large Sunni countries, right? They're trying to buy their way in. Now, the problem is the difference between Qatar, and this is what you need to understand, the difference between Qatar and some of these other countries is that Qatar is the home of Al Jazeera, or at least they're considered to be Al Jazeera's sugar daddy. And that means a lot of the radicalist ideology that's getting beamed into homes of Muslims living in America is coming from Al Jazeera and therefore is Qatari funded. And so that's what's causing a lot of concern with traditional conservatives who previously didn't have much concerns about forging stronger alliances with the Saudis. I don't know. Maybe we have. I don't know that our colleague Mark Levin, has he lost his mind about us having a strong alliance with Jordan? Have we seen him being very critical about that online? I haven't seen that. Have you seen that? Or Saudi Arabia, for that matter? I haven't seen that either.
He's been losing his mind about other things.
Yeah, but the Qatar thing rightfully is causing some people to lose their minds because Qatar is cutting checks. See what I did there? Qatar is cutting checks to radicalization. And that radicalization is getting beamed into our country. Almost to the point that there's a better chance your Muslim neighbor in New Orleans before the Sugar Bowl last year is going to attempt to light you on fire than if you were walking the streets of Dubai at the moment. That's not good. Is that good? That is not good. Okay? And that's what the head of the United Arab Emirates is saying. He's like, we Listen, I'm really enjoying my Western creature comforts here and sharing them with the populace. We cannot possibly go back. All right, we've got a Warner Brothers amusement park here. It's a really cool place, by the way. I've actually gone on YouTube and watched some of the rides they have there that are nowhere else in the world. For about 5 seconds, made me think, what's a plane ride to Dubai? You know, but that 5 seconds expired real quick. But because it was going to be way too long.
That's the reason. Of course it is.
I just threw that in for you. That's not the reason. I did that. I just did that to make sure you were paying attention. You're still awake over there. All right. But yeah, that headline is very real, and I think it speaks to where we are right now. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, again, I don't know what I have in common with Davos. I have no idea what I have in common with NATO. I really don't know. Other than those countries are more white than we are right now. They're also more Marxist. There's markedly more white people living in all those European countries than there are in America right now. And they're also remarkably more Marxist. And it has come to this point that the head of one of the head honchos over there at the UAE is like, we cannot send our kids to the West and get poisoned by Islamic radicalization so they come back home and blow us up. And did you guys see the stat that Scott Rasmussen had over the weekend that he posted? Which was European countries are now, the EU is now generating more money from from social media fines for the content they're allowing than they're collecting in taxes.
I saw, yeah, Great Britain is just lost.
Yes. That's what real fascism looks like.
Speaking of amusement parks, that's Orwell land.
Yes. All right, let's move on. Jerome Powell won't go. He's clearly been attempting to stifle. Whatever you think of the Trump economic ideology, you may not be in favor of it, but I think we all recognize that Jerome Powell spent this entire first year of the Trump presidency trying to stymie it, right?
Yeah.
We can agree or disagree on whether, reasonable people can agree or disagree on whether you think he was right or wrong to do so. But I don't think it's within dispute that he was doing so, right?
Yes.
So apparently, I mean, we're going to play some hardball here now. And here come the subpoenas from the Department of Justice. 10 years ago, I would not have been okay with something like this. Now I'm like, just do what must be done. Just do what must be done.
Absolutely.
We have an entire way of life is at stake here, right? We're performing pagan shaman rituals at lesbian agitators who, run face first into a, ice, machine gun, okay? After trying to run them over first, of course. All right. I mean, I think if that's where we are, okay, and that's just a suburban northern state, just about 3 hours from where you and I are sitting here right today, Todd.
Yes.
Okay. If that's where we are, then by all means, just at this point, just do what must be done. Then at this point,
maybe we need to warm up that sonic cannon I'm hearing about.
I'm listening. I'm listening. On Marjorie Taylor Greene, I've talked more about Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last 3 weeks than I have the entire history of this show. And that's on purpose. Why?
Forgot. We haven't even brought that up. You called it. You nailed it.
Yeah. That prediction didn't take very long to happen. Why? Crazy women are undefeated. Okay? If you're not married to her and she's crazy in the bedroom, it's because she's just crazy. She's just crazy. And you're crazier for indulging her. And she will make you pay later. I promise. Whatever your glands and hormones and nerve endings are saying to you right now about how you are the one. You're the one man. You did it. The first in 7,000 years of recorded human history. You are the first one. You are the first one to get your nerve endings satiated by a crazy woman and not pay the price for it. You're not. When encountering a crazy woman, fly, you fools. Fly. Get out. Run. They're undefeated in all of human history. Elon Musk will now be suing for full custody of the kid that he fathered with Ashley St. Clair because she is now posting about considering transing the kid. Okay? So, crazy women, undefeated. That's Daddy Steve's life lesson for the day. Run. Why is Brian Cole pleading not guilty if he's already confessed? There is an answer potentially. And that is that some form of sentencing agreement or plea agreement, okay, doesn't like him or his attorneys and given what we know of him, it's probably his attorneys, because we're dealing with a guy who's got an IQ that well into the double digits here from everything I've read about him. Would we second that? That's fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And yet somehow was able to outmaneuver the entire FBI and just be walking his dog in a cul-de-sac 5 years after he planted pipe bombs, which just blows my mind. But we'll go with it. Let's see where the evidence leads. But right now it has led poor Brian Cole to pleading not guilty, even though he's already confessed. So there is a legit reason why. I doubt it's the reason why, but there is. So try to give everybody the max benefit of the doubt we can and watch this thing play out. Because there's no need for me to get really upset one way or the other or expend a bunch of my own capital one way or the other, because there's a legal proceeding going on. We're going to get some level of clarity, right? So why not, we'll just wait this process out. Like this is a level of clarity here. Did anybody suspect Brian Cole was going to first confess to the FBI, then turn around and plead not guilty? Now, it could be him and his attorneys don't like the tenor of a sentencing agreement, a potential plea agreement. That's just part of a negotiation. That is possible. So let the process play itself out. But I gave that headline the Spock one eyebrow when I saw that on Friday. How about you?
Brian Cole is the COVID vaccine. You know how you've always said if we don't do something about this, they're going to do it to us again? Well, you could take that hyper literally and as it applies to Big Pharma, but the playbook applies to all other issues, and they are applying it exactly to this. Something utterly unbelievable. Wait, this mRNA thing, it's never worked. We've tried it many, many times. You're really going to say you just figured it out now? This Brian Cole thing. They're just going to see if we swallow this. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but they're going to try it because they believe, and rightly so, that the odds are good enough that they're going to get away with it. And that's the problem.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I'll say what I said when this story originally broke. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting story. And this recent development is also interesting.
Makes it all the more interesting.
And I'm just going to leave it there.
I think it's a good place to end it. And as Palpatine once said to a young Anakin, I've got my eye on you. We're just going to watch this puppy play out and see what happens.
And Brian Cole's a perfect, if somehow he's rounded up, send that guy wandering around downtown to be the guy that is on camera. But that's a mastermind. That guy did this.
Could be. It's possible.
It's interesting.
It's possible. It's interesting. He's just walking his dog in a cul-de-sac 5 years later, Okay.
He's Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man.
Well, that was a pretty badass character, though.
Yeah, it's a fictional character.
It was fictional. It did win Best Picture, though. Did you know that was a Best Picture winner? Rain Man was.
Yeah.
47 matches. 47 matches. Yes. All right. I am now, for the first time, becoming convinced the Iranian regime is toast. And Aaron, it's because of the story you put in your montage. The sudden Hamas shift of prominent Democrats, including Mayor Mamdani, the Islamist himself. I mean, I don't know if you guys follow congressional stock trading at all. But these prominent, and there's some Republicans in there too, man, but from Nancy Pelosi on down, these, quote, prominent Democrats have an ability to read tea leaves unforeseen in our species. Just their random understanding of events and how they will end up transpiring and making sure that their portfolios just happen to be right out ahead of said events. I mean, when do they, let's stipulate to this. When do these people show any level of collective self-awareness voluntarily? That's what I thought. Right. And so now, just out of nowhere in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, a group of people who don't have to have self-awareness, who will still look you right in the eye and say mask worked. If they got COVID today in January of 2026, they would put out a press release saying it'd be even worse had they not taken a 9th booster. Anybody want to defy me on that?
Of course not.
All right. So these are the people we're dealing with here, right? Right?
Yes.
All right. So these are the people we're dealing with here, right? Right?
Yes.
Right? Mamdani, who gets up at his inauguration speech and says, "We will reject rugged individual for the warm embrace of collectivism." Just right to your face, right?
Yes.
Right to your face. And suddenly there is a massive Ocasio-Cortez. How many years has she lied about being in the Capitol on January 6th?
All of them.
All of the years that January 6th has been a story. All of the years. Right? All of them. All right. So with all that stipulated, this is a rare amount of self-awareness, reflection, reconsideration from this particular group of people, correct?
Yes.
So why do you think they're making it, and they're all making it at the exact same time? Why do you think? I have a theory, but let me hear yours.
Well, I think I'm tracking with you, but I still give them credit. I mean, they played this hand to the bitter end. Once again, I mean, it's disgusting.
Yep.
It's absolutely vile.
Yes.
You spoke about this on another matter last week. But listen, this is this is just pragmatism on their part.
I agree. Why would they need it? Which gets to my theory. They cannot allow another Venezuela. Trump's approval rating was the highest after Venezuela than it had been in about 6 months. Go back to the Obama years when the Tea Party was supposedly led by Speaker John Boehner, who was negotiating against himself for those 2 years. And every time Boehner went up there and came back down the White House drive empty-handed with his hands in his pockets and negotiating against himself, that would be the biggest boost to Obama's approval rating he could possibly get. Because this has been and always will be a culture that loves winners. We may redefine what winning looks like, but it's imbued into the DNA if you live on this landmass. The famous saying of JFK, "Victory has 1,000 fathers and defeat is an orphan," has never been more true in a nation that's ever existed, I would argue, in the history of our species than this one. If it looks like leadership, if it wins, we're all in. People love winning. They love it. And this Venezuela is going to turn out to be a massive win for this country. I mean, Trump's just up there hosting his own OPEC meeting. Aaron, you had the video in your montage. Yeah. Trump's just hosting his own OPEC meeting. All right, well, we just locked down the largest oil, not just the largest oil reserves in the world, which Venezuela currently has, but this so happens to be in our own hemisphere. So this doesn't require some massive permanent military presence. Like if we had done to Iraq what I wanted to do 20 years ago, would require a permanent, significant military presence given the distance of how far away it is and where that distance also is, right? Yeah. Okay. But now this is in our hemisphere. We reign here. We're in control. And there's not even another culture that can hold our jockstrap here, let alone dare step to us. And so Trump's just up there literally just giving out, bids, buys, like it's our oil. Because it is. It's ours now. It's our oil. Thank you. And they can't let him do that again when it comes to Iran. They cannot let him have a signature win. They cannot gamble. This is something we'll discuss in the overtime today. They cannot gamble that Trump will do some kind of an extended version of what he did to Maduro to the Iranian high command, that we get up tomorrow morning and they're all gone. Like them and the Israelis just took out the Ayatollah and the command before they could exile. And so Trump is now the liberator of Iran. You see what I'm trying to say? They can't give him that win. They have to get out ahead of it. This is because this also tells you what a big win Venezuela was, okay? They cannot let him have a signature win as a strong leader, because even if there's a lot of people that will vote for Trump because they think he's a fascist because their personal economy is not doing well. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But if their situation's doing well, or they think America's situation is doing well, then they don't really care about, whether Trump's a fascist or not. I mean, think about a sports scandal. If it happens when the player is struggling or the coach is struggling, they're way more likely to get fired than if they're winning. We love winners. We love winning. We love winning as a culture. We do. And Venezuela is a massive win. They can't afford another one. He cannot be the president who liberated Iran because, Trump's just going to turn around and say this was a 50-year Democratic mistake started by Jimmy Carter in the first place, right? Okay?
Yeah.
And hanging around their necks, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay? Can't let that happen. By the way, guess where else there's a whole lot of oil? In Iran. All right? In Iran. Okay? Can't let that happen. So they have to get out ahead of him now on this.
Yeah. It has a lot to do with those videos we talked about last week that Aaron featured, where the guy coming out railing against Venezuela, and he says they're celebrating this in the streets.
Correct.
Can you imagine if they have rolling tape on Iran getting behind that curtain?
Yes.
Just over and over and over again? Yeah, I totally agree with you that at all costs, because as you said, the storytelling aspect, the emotional hook that you now have to have in terms of political storytelling, that's just, it speaks for itself.
Correct.
One aspect of this that I don't want to be dreary or dire, I do fear about potential dead men's switches if Iran were to fall. Because I don't know how many sleeper cells they have all across the globe.
Totally agree.
That's something that you have to consider.
I agree.
And given how close and cozy the Democrats have been to Hamas, I also kind of wonder if they've been hearing things through their network.
Amen. And I think this gets into the calculation we'll discuss in the overtime today. We did a poll question over the weekend. Would you be in favor of a limited U.S. military action to topple what's left of the Iranian regime in order to aid these protests? And by limited, I compared it somewhere in the scope between what we did to Iran's nuclear arsenal last summer to what was just done to Maduro last week or so. Okay? So limited somewhere within that pantheon of potential responses. And one of the things that I'll bring up when we discuss this further in the overtime is it's because of the collateral damage and the law of unintended consequences that you're alluding to there, Aaron, with the dead man switches. It's because of that this one's not as cut and dried, okay? Right? Like, we can't let this moment go. We have a chance to take out
Agreed.
the central hub of Islamic terrorism and radicalization in this world. All the lifetimes that we all can either have been alive or as long as you and I can remember. What were we, 5 years old when the hostages were taken, right? All right. So essentially, as long as you and I can remember, Iran has been this hub, right? And as long as Aaron's been alive, this is the case. So we can't let this moment go without a finishing move. But who applies that finishing move, and even more importantly, when it is applied, right? Like those dead man switches, you give your Arab nation, your Arab network of allies, Saudis, UAE, Jordan, Egypt, you give them way more latitude. The more this looks like an uprising of the Iranian people, and the less this looks like we put our thumb on the scale, right? Okay. At the same token, we may have to at least tap the scale with our thumbs. I don't know that they can overthrow the whole thing themselves. All right. But for the first time, I'm beginning to think that they can, based on what these Democrats are doing, which is really unforeseen. They have been faced with numerous circumstances of things they claimed and said that did not turn out to be true, showed no self-awareness or repentance towards those kinds of things or shame, one iota, correct?
Right.
So why do it now and doing it preemptively? Why do it preemptively? I think it's because, Aaron, you're correct. I mean, they talk to Hamas. They know where this is going. But it may require a little push from us to get it over the edge. Because you certainly don't want that little push to come from the Israelis, right? If you're worried about dead man switches and it looks like that Mossad did this, that probably encourages every dead man switch to spontaneously combust all over the world just in protest, right?
Sure.
Fair? Okay.
Yep.
But if it looks like it was us, but then how much was it us, right? You know what I'm saying? So what's that moment where the people have pushed it as far as they can go? You don't want to go in before then because that might hurt you on the back end, but you don't want to let that moment pass either because you might regret it for the next 50 years, right? Yeah, this is why... One of the reasons why the Bible says things like pray for your leaders. More in a moment.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. And of course, January is Sanctity of Life Month. So we're especially proud to support our friends and partners at Preborn this month. And if you want to support them, for as little as $28, given where fast food prices have gone the last few years, that's essentially you and your and the spouse going through a drive-through or ordering a pizza nowadays. For just $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound that doubles a baby's chance at life, and I would argue maybe even does that for mom's chance at eternal life as well, by saving both the baby and maybe mama's soul. Because these are cosmic battles, and that's why Preborn is so successful. They realize this. They literally are immersed in soul-to-soul combat, and they also realize, though, that once mom chooses life, it's not, hey, here's a coffee mug and good luck to you. They are there for up to 2 years after the baby is born with all kinds of support, intimate stuff like counseling, practical stuff like diapers and car seats. All of this they do for mom and her new family free of charge, but we all know that none of it is free. And that's where you and I come in. You can make that tax-deductible donation today by going to preborn.com/Steve. Again, head over to preborn.com/Steve. And the life issue is something we're going to spend a good deal of time talking today to our good friend Bob Vander Plaats about. Good to see you for the first time in 2026, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
And to give you guys a little bit of kudos, I told a few guys yesterday at Carver Hawkeye Arena at the University of Iowa.
Oh, you were there for the basketball game?
I was there for the basketball game with our youngest son. And youngest son met up with a couple of friends, and Bryn and Colin and Matt. And so I had a good chance to visit with Bryn, Colin, and Matt. Matt said, hey, I feel like I'm with you all the time because I watch you on the Steve Day Show.
Oh.
And so it's fun because that generation,
we found the few people that still actually pay attention to this.
You're talking middle 20s, but big fans.
Well, good.
Huge fans. And so hi to Matt and by extension, Colin, Bryn, and Logan.
Hey, to quote the great prophet Whitney Houston, I believe the children are our future.
Oh,
and those children must be taking the Cutter money too, right?
Yes.
I don't think they're taking any Cutter money.
Yes.
But we are. That's what we're told.
Yes. I am a Zionist cuck taking Cutter money. That also is a paid grifter of Con Inc. I get called those three things every day.
But I know they're not. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
I just want to make sure we draw that distinction.
All right, let's get into the life issue because the president gave, for the most part, a fairly hilarious presentation at the House retreat last week, including just a complete and total demolition of the whole women and or men and women sports thing. All right,
And Melania likes to see me dance.
Yeah. But then in the middle of that, all right, classic negotiation tactic.
Sure.
All right, I've got everybody's attention, everybody's laughing and everything, and if I got a poison pill, I got to drop it right there. Right?
And he did.
And he did.
He did.
All right, but that thing went over like a fart in church.
Yeah.
It got a lot of people's attention across the country, and it had to do with negotiating on the Hyde Amendment. Now, I'm just going to reset this, and then I'm going to hand it off to you, okay? Just for people to understand, particularly if you're younger, like the young men you just talked about, who aren't kids, just you and I are old now, so they are kids too.
And one young lady. Gender matters here.
Yeah, indeed, it does. And she's made in likeness and image of God too.
Amen.
Yes. All right, so there are two lasting victories of the pro-life movement. All right, the overturning of Roe, the most obvious one, which of course doesn't happen without Donald Trump.
Exactly.
So I do think you need to consider if you're one of the...
He will remind you of that.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, he will. I do think those of us complaining about this, and I'm one of them, need to remember, though, that he appointed the judges that overturned Roe, and that's more than any of us have done for the issue. I think we need to remember that. That doesn't mean he gets papal infallibility on the issue.
It's a major spike in the end zone.
But it's a major spike in the end zone,
Yep.
right? It's a recognition that is perpetual and must always be recognized. The second is the Hyde Amendment, which comes out of the 80s for Congressman Henry Hyde of Illinois, who was considered kind of in the first era of pro-life activism, kind of the premier pro-life member of Congress in the original post-Roe generation.
Which
Fair?
is the Illinois I'd like to remember.
Yes, and it stopped taxpayer funding to go to abortion. Now, this thing got fought over immensely over Obamacare, and this was one of the things that the Hobby Lobby and Liberty University and a bunch of people sued. The Obama administration was trying to get around the Hyde Amendment and force them as religious organizations to spend their money or be on taxpayer-funded abortion via Obamacare, right? And they won those cases at the Supreme Court, right? All right, and so Trump's signaling that we may have to, on our side, we may have to negotiate on this. And there was that went over like a fart in church. So I'll let you take it from there.
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the Hobby Lobby case. This is the Greene family, and a lot of you guys will know the Greene family. They've been very supportive of a lot of conservative causes, a very Christian family. And this definitely went against their moral, went against their ethos in regards to that we're going to fund, the killing of babies. And so they took to the Supreme Court. If you go into the Hobby Lobby headquarters today to meet with one of the executives, you will see the entire family with snow falling down, walking out of the Supreme Court, defending the sanctity of human life. And so when Trump made this deal about a negotiation, we need to be at least open. We can't be so committed one way or the other. We have to be able to use this as a negotiation. First of all, yeah, was I disheartened by that? I was. However, I was very encouraged by the response. The response overwhelmingly was, heck no, no way. And the thing of it is, and this is what President Trump understands better than anything, the taxpayer funding of abortion is not a winning issue for Democrats. This is one of those 70% issues where people don't want your tax dollars going to fund abortions. So why not land on your convictions when it's politically correct as well? Don't negotiate on this thing. And so, Steve, right away I got alerted by SBA Pro-Life, our friends there, Marjorie Taylor Greene, are saying, hey, we need voices out on this. And, of course, the voice that they're going to listen to me in regards to on a federal issue like this is going to be, let's play Politics 101, and this is something I read out of your book, Steve. Mm-hmm. Don't abandon your base.
Unless they're morally wrong.
Yeah, unless they're morally
wrong. But in this case,
they're morally right.
We're not. Yeah.
And so if you want to run for president in 2028, and believe me, everybody's got this vision of I will be president one day. I will be the successor to President Donald Trump. If you want to be president, this is a non-starter, especially in the Iowa caucuses. This will just not only blunt your campaign, this will decimate your campaign. And so I thought, let's draw out the political realities of it, but also just the common sense nature of it. My neighbors, who may be Republican, Democrat, whatever it is, I don't think any one of them says, hey, let me give money to kill babies. Mm-hmm. They may be like, hey, it's Amy's choice, but not like, I want to fund Amy's choice, so to speak. So I think politically they're wrong, morally they're wrong, and so therefore I think, and there's a group of us getting together tonight, national leaders on a conference call, and there's going to be literally hundreds to thousands on the conference call talking about this very issue.
Well, listen, we have, it's no secret, and this has been going on even before Trump got reelected. This happened throughout 2022. This happened throughout 2023. This happened throughout 2024. It happened throughout 2025. Okay.
Yeah.
We got collectively slobber-knocked and mollywopped in special elections.
Yeah.
All right. Off-cycle elections, which are indicative of two things. Number one, there is, often in places where we control the election machinery. Okay. So we're not talking about places where, they're boarding up windows in Philadelphia in 2020 and, conjuring votes.
Yep.
We're talking in a lot of red areas, they are dramatically overperforming their demographics. So that, one, it tells you that they have a permanent organizational presence in place on their side that we don't have. Charlie was beginning to build that. In fact, he was one of the key instruments in Trump's get out the vote effort in 2024 when Trump just bypassed the Republican Party and outsourced it. But then, of course, they murdered him, So, we really don't have an on-the-ground apparatus to compete with them on a race-by-race, off-year election basis across the country.
Our on-the-ground apparatus, I only counter, Charlie and I talked about this. The on-the-ground apparatus, when motivated and mobilized and inspired, is still the local church.
That brings me to the second point, okay? Our base is completely and totally uninspired. And demotivated.
Yeah.
They won't vote unless Trump is on the ballot. They view him as essentially the only hope they have collectively in the Republican Party. We were able to say for a couple of years there that if you had a dynamic governor like we've been blessed to have in Iowa, or like they still have in Florida too, that could overcome that. But now you're starting to see Iowa and Florida special elections fall by the wayside too. So even you're starting to see erosion now in the DeSantis and Kim Reynolds kind of walls. And we don't have many governors like that on our side, period, around the country, which means they're able to penetrate our defenses pretty much anywhere they want in these low turnout elections. We don't need to be giving our base less reason to vote right now. the Maha, there's three people that we need to make sure are completely inspired and motivated to at least get a stalemate in these midterms so that they don't take over the House and begin impeachment palooza. There's three kinds of voters. The Maha voter, I think we're in good shape with them right now. You tell me, Todd, but I get the sense overall after
there was some concern
the first 6 months. Yeah, but right now, I would say you're of the three groups the one that's the most satisfied right now.
Agreed.
All right. The second group we've completely lost, and we have to get them back. And that is that Theo Von, Joe Rogan voter who thinks the whole system is corrupt. They're not really ideological, but they're patriotic. They don't really want to be, they're not, necessarily Christian, but they don't want to be a bunch of wimps, and be ashamed of being born with male parts and masculinity. And they kind of thought that because they shot Trump in the face, that Trump might be the kind of guy to finally drain the swamp and give him some answers to how corrupt the system is than they've ever gotten before. And they're not getting those answers. I mean, I put Musk in this camp too. And Musk is out there liking tweets from me, pointing out no one's getting arrested. Okay. Yep. All right. So that group is off the reservation right now. Musk is saying he's going to get back in, but those podcasters that helped Trump win in 24, they're all off the reservation right now. We got to get them back.
Give me one good reason to stay here.
Yeah, the third group is the traditional conservative base that you're talking about, largely, not exclusively, but largely evangelical and almost completely and comprehensively pro-life. The last thing we need to do is say to those people, let us give you one more reason not to vote for us this fall. I think that's just a terrible decision.
Steve, back in, I think it was the 2012 campaign, we did a tour around the state with presidential candidates, and we called them the Presidential Lecture Series. And I was in a private plane with Ron Paul, who was running for president at that time. And Ron Paul, who was a OBGYN doctor, he said to me, Bob, listen, if I know where somebody stands on the sanctity of human life, typically if they're right on life, they'll be right on every other issue. If they're wrong on life, they're going to be wrong on about every other issue. And so therefore it becomes a very core issue, especially for the evangelical base. If you decimate the evangelical base on top of what Steve just talked about with the Joe Rogan and those type of ideologues type deal, and then the Maha does not have Trump on the ballot. So even though they might not be as far gone as we thought they were, they still want Trump on the ballot. Trump's not going to be on the ballot. It just decimates us in the midterm elections. And Steve, the elections that you talked about in 2022, Iowa and Florida, in the midst of a blue wave, were the only two, or red wave, those were the only two who show we went solidly red. Why? You had a pro-life governor in Florida and a pro-life governor in Iowa, and they were both willing to talk about it. Otherwise, we never experienced the red wave. Now they're talking about a blue wave in 2026. What is going to be our stopgap? And I happen to believe it's still going to be the evangelical church that's going to be your stopgap, but not if you cave on the life issue.
Well, let's bring this close to home, because we're sitting here in Iowa's 3rd congressional district. It's the most swingy district in our state, right? Okay. And we've had a Republican congressman here running for a 3rd term, I believe, or is it 4th?
It's 3rd.
3rd, for Zach Nunn. He has won 2 by the hair of his chinny chin, or his reelect by the thinnest of margins, right? And he was one of their top targets in 24, but he survived. Okay, so he's facing this dilemma right now, where I'm trying to hold back, the energy on the other side, and it's all against me, right? And maybe if I can hold that back, my base will kind of ignore if I do something they don't like on this one, because they'll have to vote for me later, right? So he's one of the, was it 16 or 17?
Yep, 17.
On Thursday, that voted for taxpayer-funded abortion. Our own congressman did.
And what I don't understand, and Zach, I personally like him. Matter of fact, I was hoping he'd run for governor at one point. Like, I hope he'd run for governor in this cycle, because I just thought he'd be the type of candidate, military background, that would probably be able to win the governorship back, or keep it in our hands with the governorship. But remember, Steve, in 2024, the commercial that ran nonstop was in a primary debate that he had with his other candidates. And they said, who'd be for life at conception? Or there's a very solid pro-life issue there. And they show Zach Nunn raising his hand. And they ran it over and over and over again. And he won. So now in a re-elect for 2026, you cave on the issue? They already have that footage, and you won. Why would you cave on the issue now? Because I just think what they're going to do is throw you under the bus saying, listen, if he'll cave on life, he'll cave on everything else. He'll demoralize our base. And now you have a chance that 3rd District does not stay in the hands because of that decision. It was a very, very poor decision on his part.
So I've got about a minute here. I mean, you're going to be one of the organizations he's going to rely on to turn his base out. What do you say to your own base? Hey,
well,
when your own people come to you and say, wait a minute, didn't this guy vote for taxpayer-funded abortion?
Well, Steve, several months ago, matter of fact, back in the fall, I went to a thing that Marjorie Dansfelser of SBA asked me to come and speak to door knockers who came in from all over the country to saturate the 3rd District to get ahead of the campaign and why you want to vote for Zach Nunn. And it was on the sanctity of human life issue. Marjorie Dansfelser, I know, tweeted at him, texted to him, gave him a call and said, my guess is you want us to pull out. Well, if you have SBA and groups like ours that say start pulling out, saying, listen, we're not taking a position in the race. We may vote in it, but we're not going to actually put skin in the game in it. That's how you lose. You abandon your base, you demoralize your base. That's how you lose. And what we're trying to do is make sure that our governor candidates, our congressional candidates, our state house candidates, they understand, stand firm on this issue, especially something that's as simple as taxpayer funding of abortion.
Todd and Aaron got about 90 seconds. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I'm just concerned. I don't know him. I've never met him. But if you lost because of this, wouldn't you sleep well at night? I know I would.
Oh,
if there's ever something to lose over,
standing on the same
this would be the one.
Life,
so
you bet.
I don't know how many variables he's judging thinking through this. There's really not as many variables as you think, Zach.
But this is one where Steve talked about earlier on. Morally, we're right on this issue. Politically,
there's
right
literally not a voter to be gained.
So
cannot possibly
I don't
happen.
get it. I mean, that's one of these I just don't get.
There is no voter that exists in this or any other district. The person does not exist in any critical mass that turns elections whatsoever. That was, you were too pro-life for me before, but since you voted for taxpayer-funded abortion, I'm going to overlook all of that. No, that person is already working to get you out of office to begin with, so there's just a loss leader here. There's nothing to be gained.
And frankly, it's that argument that surprised me that Trump decided, let's start negotiating on that issue. There's nothing to be gained there. Why negotiate on that issue? Stand firm on that issue, motivate your base, and let's win in 2026.
Good stuff, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back here, we're going to do our first Ask Me Anything of the new year. Questions came from X. Todd, we have some good ones?
Good ones and plenty.
And plenty? Yeah. All right. Is that your way of saying speed it up there, old man?
No, I don't think you're really, truly capable of ultimately.
Probably
if
not.
The questions are good, we'll just marinate it in and see what happens.
All right, we'll get to those next. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Aaron McIntyre and Todders, and I'm Steve Deace. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace, at Steve Deace Show, I should say, on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Then please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. Again, that's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind, we'd love it if you love the podcast, if you let everybody else know how much you do. By leaving us a 5-star review, whether it's on Apple iTunes or any other podcast platform that you prefer. And then if you're on Apple iTunes, click that follow button, or everywhere else, hit subscribe. And that's how you're going to know for sure that you get every one of our 240 episodes that we're going to do between now. If the Lord permits it, between now and the end of this year. And also make sure that you know about our friends over at Patriot Mobile. Got a chance to hang out with them backstage after one of the 4 times I spoke at America Fest last month. And when I say, and I've been telling you for the last few years, they reinvest your profits back into your prophetic beliefs. I just see it everywhere I go around the country. And then on top of that, it's a fantastic product. Our family has been with Patriot Mobile now. This will be the 6th year, and we have just not looked back. We've undergone Lots of lifestyle changes. We've launched kids out of the home. We've needed new phones, needed new numbers. They've been there with us every step of the way. They'll make it as customizable as possible with their U.S.-based customer service team. Get unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, and more. They've got 3 separate networks that you can join within their main hub. Switch anytime if you don't like the network you're on for free. If you don't like the contract you're in, but you think you're locked into it, they've got contract buyout programs as well. And you can keep your number, switch within minutes, keep your phone upgraded if you want. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. And if you use the offer code Steve, you'll get a free month of service to get you started. That's a free month of service to get you started at patriotmobile.com/Steve. And with that, one of my favorite segments every week, Ask Me Anything. We're taking our first batch of questions here in the year of our Lord 2026 from our followers on X. You guys know the drill. I put out the clarion call. I don't know what any of the questions are or even how many we get. I like to be surprised, blindsided, shocked, backstabbed. Todd, you curate each and every one of those questions, and then you select the ones that you think, for whatever reasons, that are on your mind in a given day. We're going to answer those on the air. And then, Aaron, you've got those questions, man. So let's just light them up.
We'll start with MB, who asks, do you foresee any of the major podcasters on the right currently embroiled in the bizarre positions they've taken lately, walking anything back that they've done or said? Or do you think they're just going to double down and to point, and at that point, suffering a tremendous loss of listeners?
So let me say this first, as context. I know Tucker a little bit. I've known Dan Bongino for years. I did not know Megyn Kelly at all until her and her staff called me out of the blue the last couple of years and have booked me. Is it like 3 times I think I've been on there? It's 3 or 4, something like that. Candace Owens, I don't know at all, and that's on purpose because I didn't get a good vibe from her day one and did my best to just avoid her until she chose to take supposedly our mutual friend's death and try to grift and shame people off of it. Who else would be in that major? Ben Shapiro would be in the major tier. Used to work with Ben at Salem. Ben endorsed several of my books early on, but certainly starting with COVID, me and him and I would have not been on the same side on several of the kind of existential debates within our movement the last few years, right? I've always had a lot of respect for him on a character and integrity standpoint, though. I will say that, even though I have some clear disagreements with him. And I'll also tell you, I know people that have worked for and with him at Daily Wire that either are still there or not there anymore, and none of them speak poorly of him from a character standpoint. So I should mention that too. Charlie, of course, is no longer with us, sadly. What major... Matt Walsh I've known for years, going back to when Matt worked here at the Blaze before we did. I don't talk to him as much as I used to, but I have an immense amount of respect for Matt personally and professionally for his work too. I would be a fan of his content on top of that. Is there a name that I haven't mentioned? Well, Glenn, obviously, but that goes without saying. Glenn's just one of the finest human beings you're ever going to meet in this walk of life, frankly. Is there another obvious major name I have not covered that belongs in that clear top tier of people that he's probably referring to?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. So with that being said, that's a personal context with these people I have. And if you're going to ask me about them, then you should take into account and consideration that personal context so you can determine what you think of my answers accordingly. Those are the biases that I may or may not have. All right? I think Tucker is sincere. I do. And that is why I am concerned. I think Tucker is very sincere. I think that, and we'll do another deconstructing Tucker deconstructing tomorrow. Actually, I've got that lined up for tomorrow's show. We're going to have another segment of that with some stuff that's come out just since last week. If I didn't think he was sincere, I would just hit the ignore mute button and just not address it and move on. We've done that with a few people over the years, right? Including people that we have maybe platformed. And then we found out after platforming them and developing what we thought was a real relationship that they just really weren't sincere individuals, or they were compromised. And because they had done some good work during the period of time that we worked with them, we didn't want to dishonor that, right? You love your neighbors, you love yourself. So what did we do? We just kind of hit mute, broke it off. You won't hear us publicly condemning or criticizing them, but we just close that door. That's kind of how we've handled those situations in the past, right?
Yes.
If I thought Tucker was grifting, if I thought Tucker was just taking money from Qatar, that's what I would have done here. But I don't. I'm actually fairly convinced I'm right, that Tucker is operating from a place of sincerity. And I think the greatest evidence for that is a lot of the other work that he does outside of questions about Israel and Jews and foreign policy. A lot of that work is still intact, right? He's not like comprehensively compromising it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why I think that this is really sincere, and therefore we should sincerely address it, because he's talking to a lot of the same people either we are talking to or would like to. In Meghan's case, I think you're dealing with somebody that has lived in a ratings-driven environment her entire career, and that comes with its own set of pressures. And I think that you can kind of maybe at times get caught up in some contemporary trend lines of things that the numbers say that's what an audience wants to hear. And I think without a really defined worldview that you're willing, with hills you're willing to die on top of that, it's very hard to resist that, And if I made the kind of money she did, and if I required the kind of staff she does, and all those various livelihoods that relied on me, I've got two here, and I feel pressure every day, not from these guys, just internally. I feel pressure every day. Don't screw this up, man. I mean, I'm maybe some Erzin Kids College Fund. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that pressure internally with just two guys.
Not maybe, you are. Just
I feel that pressure internally with just two guys, let alone if I had an incorporation in my name, And the algorithmic gods absolutely want this anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic content. They favor it, they promote it, they reward it, they punish you for challenging it and condemning it. And I think that frankly, she is struggling to figure out what still gets the amount of eyeballs and clicks and ratings that all the things that everybody is responsible I'm responsible for wants me to have, without having to cross a line that she probably doesn't want to have, or probably doesn't want to cross. And I think she's trying to navigate that. And that's hard to do if you've got a biblical worldview, really hard to do if you don't. And I think that's what you're watching with her. I think with Dan, I think we desperately need Dan's voice on a myriad of fronts. I just don't know, though, how you cannot be disappointed on some level by what transpired the year that him and Cash were in charge of the FBI. I bet you if we put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around Dan Bongino on February 1st of last year, right before he came into the job, and we said, hey, when the year is over, you're going to say that you thought Epstein killed himself, not arrest or charge anybody that did the January 6th false flag, tried to steal the last election, did their Mar-a-Lago raid, tried to poison people with a jet. You see what I'm saying? Nobody. You're not going to arrest anybody that you did a show about for the last 5 years. Nobody. And you're going to tell us that Epstein killed himself. I'm guessing if he had, I just, at least the Dan that I knew prior to taking this job, that many of us knew, I don't believe for a second that Dan Bongino leaves his company and that position to go and do that. I don't believe that. Do you?
No,
I don't. So we're left to answer then, what's the disconnect here? And I don't think we have enough information to know. And so, Dan Bongino is a net plus to me, but this is going to be a negative to people. I totally get it. And frankly, Tucker Carlson did a better job of telling us about Thomas Matthew Crooks last year than Dan Bongino did. If we're being honest, he did. Who'd we learn more about? The guy who tried to assassinate Trump. Do we learn more about him from Tucker Carlson or the assistant director of the FBI or the deputy director of the FBI?
It's not even close.
It's not even close. And on purpose, I'm leaving out the Steve Friend FBI whistleblower issue because that one is personal to me. I mean, Steve is a friend of mine. Steve will tell you our show is one of the reasons why he came forward. He felt convicted that he had to. So I almost feel kind of responsible in a way. So I know that I cannot look at his situation objectively. And so I'm trying to leave that out of my calculus because that is a personal thing for me. And I just know I cannot evaluate Dan objectively there. But objectively, we desperately need Dan's voice on a host of issues. And we could have used his voice on a host of issues for the last year as the deputy director of the FBI, and it doesn't feel like we got it. In Ben's case, I just think that I think Ben is a high character individual. but has a worldview that is predisposed to trust expert opinion, and even when it doesn't deserve it, and at times struggles to get over this idea that he thinks that, and Ben is smarter than most of us, and he's, I think, also too aware of it. I just think Matt has done like tremendous services to humanity level of stuff the last few years between his movies and everything else. He would, of all the top tier talents, he'd probably be the closest I would be, I'd be tempted to be a fanboy of. If I wasn't in this business and just a consumer of the content, he'd be the one I'd be the most tempted to be a fanboy of. Glenn, you'll never get me to say anything negative about it. Wouldn't be where I'm at without a handful of people. Glenn would be one of them. And as just a human being, you won't get anybody to say anything negative about Glenn in their private dealings with him either. And then Kansas, I think, is a satanic slanderer. Did I give my thoughts on the entire group? Now, how that answers your question, I don't know. I think you can take the math of what I just said and maybe do that math yourself about where you think those conversations will go. I think it is very clear that Dan views himself as the man who has the level of platform. Oh, we probably should have put Mark Levin in that group. How did we forget that too? I should have put Mark there as well. And I know Mark a little bit and have worked with him for years. I don't know him all that well. But Mark is very honest. And all my dealings with Mark, exceedingly honest, maybe even painfully so. You're going to know where you stand with Mark. You're going to know. He's going to let you know. So I think Dan views himself as Daddy is coming home to clean up some of these messes. And we could use it. We could use it, okay? But Daddy's got his own issue that he's got to face too, And there's going to be some kids that are going to be like, I'm going to have a hard time listening to the old man until he addresses the elephant in the room here. You see what I'm trying to say? That kind of a thing. And then there's going to be other kids that are going to be like, hey, I know that elephant's in the room, but man, we really need the old man right now, so I'm going to overlook that because we need him. And then we're going to argue with each other about which one of those kids are you, And we're not in, overall, here's what this all means. We are not in a good place right now. And that meme of that massive river of retardation and the giant dam that says Charlie Kirk, and he's holding back the retardation because behind it says the right learning how to unite and win. I look at that meme like every day. It's right here on my desktop, guys. I literally look at it every day. Not a day has gone by since post-Charlie's memorial that I have not thought about that. Over the holidays, every day. I think about it at least once all the time.
I think...
And that's the most honest and forthright I can be. I did myself no professional favors by doing that. But I did that for all of you because I know you have questions. And ultimately, I don't work for my professional relationships. I work for you. And so that's the most honest I can be, even if I maybe dinged my own professional relationships by being that honest with you.
I think there's a reality that all the people you've mentioned, for the most part, have had to face and look in the eye, and they're struggling with how to wear that, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that struggle, and it's an understandable struggle. The reality is that all of them were I think almost all of them are every bit as high profile, broadly speaking, accomplished professionally, involved as Charlie Kirk was.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until he died that everybody had the reality of that image you're talking about, that he really was the glue to all this. And listen, this is not a slander, but I think I just had this light bulb moment while you were talking. All of them had to look at the fact that not one of them, if they had been killed, if they had been assassinated in some way, shape, or form, none of them would have had the public celebration of life that Charlie did. I don't think anybody would have.
You mean as explicitly evangelical as Charlie's was?
Well, just as, like the whole
package.
The whole package, filling up an entire football stadium.
I don't deny that. And that, by the way, that's like saying, John's really not as important as the Apostle Paul. I mean, he's pretty freaking important, but the Apostle Paul had a unique calling. Charlie had an apostolic level calling.
But everybody is really just figuring that out after he's gone.
Yes.
And all of these people are legitimately who we are all asking on some level,
Yes.
including the guy I'm talking to right now, you, to fill the void. People, they're finding their shoulders just aren't that broad. And they know they have to get broader, and they're trying to work that at real time, and they're making mistakes doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it. That spiritual warfare that assassinated Charlie is now moving on and saying, yeah, you're next. I know you're fill the void, and I don't think you can do it. And then they're saying, oh, yes, I can, which causes people to overcompensate. I think that's what we are watching.
None of the people I just mentioned have Charlie's level of understanding of the Word of God. They don't. And therefore, they lack the limiting principle at work in their lives, and or they may have the limiting principle down right, but they maybe lack some of the nuance of discernment that gives you. I think a lot of people think understanding moral absolutes means that you just paint the world by numbers. The exact opposite is true. It is understanding moral absolutes that lets you actually see where the nuance is. Because if moral absolutes are absolutely true, they're also true about you. And you've got to confront your own sinfulness.
Yes.
And you've got to say, wow, I mean, look at my own thought life. Look at my own temptations. And the Lord is still using me. That might mean that he's also using other people despite theirs. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. It is the understanding of the absolutes of the universe that do not make things simple for you.
Yeah.
It makes it complicated and nuanced. That's when you begin to understand, okay, just how nuanced and paradoxical all of this is.
Yeah.
All right. And Charlie, I can just attest to it personally, had an in-depth supernatural level of understanding that even a 32-year-old man that had maybe gone to a seminary and a convent his entire life would not normally have without that level of apostolic giftedness.
Charlie and his loss, all of them are facing that I have to be better. And they have to do that in real time, on camera, quickly in front of people because life's happening and they're struggling with it.
I agree.
That's life.
I mean, I looked at the podcast rankings yesterday. I mean, Tucker and Candace finished the year top 10 in the country. Tucker's right now in the top 30. Candace is in the top 50. So the mob is fickle, man. Now, listen, we'd still love to have those numbers. I mean, those are still elite level numbers, okay? But the mob is fickle.
All right. Oh, you want to move on?
Just one more thing.
Okay.
And again, I did myself no favors being that honest with you, except to all of you. I hope it helps all of you, because ultimately, you're the ones that we ultimately work for.
All right, next we go to Timothy, who asks, what obstacles to your success were overcome with ease versus which ones were more difficult?
I would say the ones that were overcome with ease were the doors that the Lord just opened for me. I could have never possibly opened myself or didn't even know I had to even open. I have never done it. I've never done a single job in this business that I applied for or submitted for. I've only attempted to get one broadcast job and I got rejected. It was a full-time sports talk show host for a Clear Channel sports station in Detroit like 20 some odd years ago. Every other opportunity I've had, from the movie we made to this show being on this network to the syndicated networks we used to be on, all happened because people I previously did not know or I previously did not know could open this door for me, called me out of the blue and offered it to me. And so that's why I do things like the last answer I just did. Because ultimately, I don't think I didn't build this. I hopefully have maximized it in a way with the talent the Lord has given me to bring him glory. But I didn't build any of this. It was given to me. So I'm playing with house money. Right? This isn't, something that, I made all this happen. I couldn't have made this happen from Des Moines, Iowa if I tried. And that's just from a career standpoint. Not many people go from Des Moines as a radio host to where I am at now, let alone before we even start getting to the circumstances, the poverty circumstances that I was born into, on government assistance to a teenage mom and everything else. So that gives me confidence that if I first serve God and then secondly serve all of you, even if it won't make me the most popular or won't make me the richest, that ultimately that's what God opened these doors for me to do, and he'll keep opening those doors for me provided I keep doing it. And he'll stop doing it once I stop responding accordingly. So that's the easy part, because I didn't do any of that. I didn't know who Stu Epperson Jr. was. I didn't know who Daniel Horowitz was. I didn't know who Gaston Mooney was. I didn't know who Tyler Carden was. I didn't know who Glenn Beck was. No way to get a hold of him. He called me. I mean, I didn't know any of these people. No clue. None. I know who Stu Epperson Sr. was. No clue. They all called me. I mean, those are some of the biggest names in our business, or people that used to be but passed on, people that built, companies that are on the New York Stock Exchange that took a chance on me. They all did it without any prompting from me at all, because I didn't know them. I didn't know how to connect to them. The hardest part is myself. And anybody in any position of leadership that doesn't answer that is setting themselves and you up for failure. The recognition of your own sinfulness. I mean, I was this close to coming in here one day and telling you all, my wife and I are splitting up, and let me explain why, but still keep listening to what I'm telling you. And then there's probably 3 or 4 other instances I'm not even aware of where I was this close to some other great moral failing, and the Lord maybe stopped me from myself. Chesterton's greatest line, and given his body of work, this is as hefty as Chesterton was, compliment, okay? His greatest line is what he wrote to the Daily Mirror. When they asked him and a famous atheist of the era to both submit op-eds on what's wrong with the world as we get ready to turn into the 20th century. And the atheist wrote some, heavily worded, lofty screed, and Chesterton wrote back one line. What's wrong with the world is me. And if you're in any leadership position and you don't know that you are your biggest problem, you are a time bomb, and it's just a matter of how many you'll eventually take down with you when you learn that inevitable truth. And it's the understanding of that that makes it way more likely you'll never have to learn that inevitable truth, because you already know it and you'll act and lead accordingly.
That was a good answer. Next, we go to Elizabeth, who says, have you seen some of the people who call themselves Christians? Their response to Joel Webbin's post about interracial marriage, the amount of ugly comments about interracial marriage is disgusting. What is your response?
It's disgusting. There is no concept of race in a biblical worldview as we understand it, define it, does not exist. The world is divided into 2 classes of people in the Old Testament, Jew and Gentile. Everybody falls into one of those 2 camps. And in the New Testament, sinner and saint, which is just a variation of the same thing. So there's all kinds of nationalistic identities, but there are no racial identities as we understand them today. And understand that the gospel was birthed in what at that moment was the most singularly diverse community that the world had ever seen, the Roman Empire, stretching from Africa all the way to the Nordic lands. And then on the very door of the Orient. So it both occupied the Fertile Crescent in Asia. It both occupied all of the northern territories in Africa. And then the very foundations of where Western civilization came from. Gaul, France, Britannia, England, all the Nordic countries owned all those areas. It was the most diverse community or empire in the history of humanity at that moment. And it's out of that the gospel came. And the gospel makes it very clear, Paul writes, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, meaning the old distinctions are gone. Male or female, he doesn't mean that, and gender's not a thing, but these used to be limiting principles in a society, meaning that if you were one of these in a matriarchal society, if you were male, you'd be undermined, and if you were female in a hyper-patriarchal society, it would be all these worldly distinctions are now gone and erased. One Lord, one baptism, one faith, one church. So there's nothing constructive comes from playing with these distinctions at all. Now, there's a separate matter that there's very clear been an attempt to replace white populations in countries like this in the last generation. That's a separate matter. All right. But it comes down to what's the worldview. I mean, I don't know what you guys, if you guys looked at what the white populations in England think right now. What do the white populations in France and Germany think right now? Those countries are way whiter than us. What's the worldview check-in in those nations looking like, do you think? Garbage. Okay. But the difference is the white population in this country is the most likely to still be going to some form of a church that maintains orthodoxy or holding on to the culturally orthodox views of our understanding of our own history and customs and legacy. So so two things can be true. And again, this is where a biblical worldview requires this level of nuance. It is both unbiblical and sinful to divide the world and see the world in either side of the argument, primarily as a racial construct. But then secondly, those that have been doing it have clearly been attempting to replace white people for a generation. The two things can be true.
All right, let's move on. Maybe one more before the break. Kristen asks, Trump just withdrew from 66 international organizations. In 2 weeks, he goes to Davos. What's going to happen there?
I'm not worried about that at all. I'm way more worried about Trump sitting down with members of Congress than I am with him sitting down in Davos. Because I'm a track record guy. What's your track record show? I mean, on the international front, Donald Trump has been nothing close to extraordinary in the going on 6 years we've had him as a president of the United States. I mean, I would take post-World War II, I'd take his body of success on a foreign policy standpoint, and I'd put it up against any president in either party in the post-World War II era. On the domestic front, I'm not nearly as confident. So I'd be way more worried about Trump having a meeting with Chuck Schumer on immigration. Way more worried. And in his first term, by the way, he did try to cave on immigration. Remember, he offered him all the dreamers, and Schumer said no. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So, but on the foreign front, I am not the least bit concerned. If anything, roll tape, because you're way more likely to get Trump going there to lay some ordnance down than some kind of capitulation. I'm not worried about him on the foreign front at all. At all.
All right, maybe one more.
Okay.
Let's do this. Mav, the IT guy, says, thoughts on the books that didn't make it into the Bible. Is it taboo to read them, or can we gain or learn anything from them, like Enoch, Thomas, etc.?
I would well, Enoch and Thomas are from two different apocryphal understandings, okay? The Gospel of Thomas should be burned and don't go anywhere near it. That's a complete and total Gnostic heresy of the first century. And then there's other books that aren't necessarily biblical, but not anti-biblical. Maybe their lineage is in dispute. That's more of what the traditional apocrypha has been known. Enoch would be in that group. I don't think there's anything that again, as long as you put everything up against the framework of Scripture, I think you're totally fine. But books like Thomas are meant to challenge the framework of Scripture, and thus we have all thought, whether we're dealing with the church of the Eastern Greek Church, whether we're dealing with Rome, whether we're dealing with the modern Protestant Church, we have all been against those Gnostic Gospels for that very reason. They were constructed specifically to contradict the Gospel. So it just depends on which apocryphal work you're talking about. We'll come back. More of your questions. How am I doing pace-wise so far?
Good.
We're
really
doing well?
Good, yeah.
All right, let's see if we can keep it going. Great questions. We'll keep it up next.
The Steve Deace Show.
Hey, if you do appreciate our breathtaking honesty here, become one of our partners. Join the family here at Blaze TV. Get a discounted subscription today when you go to blazetv.com/Deace and use the promo code Deace. blazetv.com/Deace, promo code Deace. You'll get a discount on your subscription today with the promo code Deace. At blazetv.com/Deace, you'll get all of our exclusive content that we do every day, all of our shows. Go back and watch things from the past maybe you missed before that you want to see. blazetv.com/Deace. Use the promo code Deace. All right, let's continue on with some Ask Me Anything. These have been great questions so far, man. Appreciating them. Go ahead.
Uncommon Sense is next, who asks, what is the end game of American empire?
Well, see, now, see ya. You jump to the end of the test. Okay. It's really the same end game of every single human kingdom. There isn't one. There's only one perpetual kingdom in all of the cosmos. Only one. It's the kingdom of God. Everything else is temporary. So, the narrow road is to establish with whatever your platform is, with whatever your culture is, as much recognition and perpetuating of what is good, true, and beautiful as you can, both for your own and then future generations flourishing. While at the same time recognizing you ultimately have no control over whether you're successful with that or not. Because God is God and you are not. Now, if you only seek to do things this side, or as Todd used to say, east of Eden, if you only seek to do things east of Eden that you are confident cannot be corrupted or tainted or weaponized against you, how many things in this life do you think you'll end up doing, Todd?
Very few.
Very few. In fact, it's probably a number fairly close to the zero baseline.
Yes.
Yeah. Because sin is a reality of the world and all creation groans with sin. All right? So you do your best. You know, our founders did. They put a lot of institutions and mechanisms in place to stop what's happening to our culture from happening right now. But in the end, that wasn't going to be good enough. You know? So that's the other thing. You don't want to knowingly do something you know will get tainted, corrupted, and weaponized, right? You don't want to do that either.
Right.
Okay? Steve, this sounds hard. Well, it's a narrow road. So, yeah.
See your first answer to your first question. Yeah, it's hard. People are sorting this
very
out in
hard.
real time.
It's very, very hard. Okay? Like on the Megyn Kelly front, I think it's entirely possible. Megyn went from Fox News, which is completely detached from the Republican base. She went from Fox News to mainstream media to now this arena. She's really had very limited interaction and in-depth relationships with our base until recently. And it's entirely possible that she has a responsibility to produce a certain amount of ratings or clicks or whatever we call them nowadays. And this kind of content, and then realizing, but wait a minute, this isn't the audience I want. Like if 6 months from now, if in June or July, if Megyn Kelly was doing a show on, you know, I called the whole Groyper thing wrong, like she did on the tranny thing. Remember, she did one of the very first mainstream media interviews on tranny kids when she was on the Today Show, right?
Right.
If 6 months from now, 90 days from now, 9 months from now, 1 year from now, if Megyn Kelly did a show realizing, okay, the Groyper thing was a total scam, I can't believe I ever fell for that thing. Should have seen that coming. Would it really shock you if she did?
No.
No. It wouldn't. On the other hand, if Tucker did a show on Jews in Israel 6-9 months from now or a year from now, where he did that, would it shock you? Yes, would be my answer, because I think he's sincere. I think that he has fallen into some pits, and it requires an extraordinary amount of humility to get out of them. You almost can never get out of them yourself. This is why I said when we started the Deconstructing Tucker stuff, what church does he go to? Who's his pastor? Who's he listen to? Without accountability, go back and watch the speech I gave at Webbin's event last March at Trash World. Without accountability, you will become what you hate. Inevitable. Inevitable.
Next up, we go to this from Hap, who asks, in an era of ballooning national debt and debates over fiscal responsibility, how should Christians apply Jesus' teaching to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's when government demands seem to conflict with stewardship of God in your God-given resources or moral imperatives?
Well, the first thing I would say is there's a hierarchy of values, and the government as it is currently constructed, for the most part, in this country, pretty much allows for the free teaching and discipling of the gospel of Christ, correct?
Right.
And so therefore, that's our highest reason for being as believers. Did I say it was our only reason for being as believers? But did I say it was our highest?
Yes.
All right. So therefore, since that is the highest aim, is the Great Commission to be a good steward of your resources? Is that the Great Commission?
No.
No. Is it a commission, though?
Yes.
Yeah, it is a commission, right? But is it the Great Commission?
No.
Did Jesus say, go into all the world and teaching them Dave Ramsey's, Free Peace University or whatever that thing used to be called that he did that was so great. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry, Dave.
I think that's the
or Financial Peace University.
I think that's the 18th chapter of Proverbs.
That was not the Great Commission. Okay. Nevertheless, is Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University bathed in biblical principles?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So there's a hierarchy of principle here. All right. You are not being, for the most part in this culture as it is currently led, unless you live in a deep blue state, which is why you should reconsider living there. Unless you are living in one of those places, and you're probably choosing to live there of your own volition, you may have a legitimate reason why. I'm caring for a sick person. I have a business I can't move. It might be a legit reason why you're there, but you chose to be there, right? I mean,
Yes.
No one grabbed you. There wasn't a caravan of marauders in Alabama going through Alabama, just grabbing people off the side of the road to take them to Oregon and drop them off and be put down by the blue state. That didn't happen against your will. You're not Joseph, right? No one sold you into slavery. You're not Jeremiah. You didn't get thrown into a well, right? Okay.
Right.
You chose by your own free will to be there. Okay. Unless you're in one of those places, though, you're largely unencumbered with living and sharing the gospel, right? And since that is the Great Commission, our main reason to exist as the church, then considerations that bother us should all be secondary to that.
All right, next up, we go to this. Daniel asks, Paul said if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. A certain model, for a lack of better term, publicly claimed to be a new Christian and was baptized recently, yet she continues to engage in the same sexual sin as before with no hint of repentance. Is she truly a new creation?
I don't know who this is about.
It's about one of those two professional, I have sex with 100 men at a time.
Oh,
chicks.
okay.
I
Because there
can't-
was the one gal that left OnlyFans behind, right?
Yeah, but this is one of the two who's...
This is the other one?
Well, there's two blonde girls who look alike, and they all, like...
Right, but
compete
there was
with
the one
each
gal that she like changed her dress and everything. I can't remember their names. I'm sorry, but she
No,
changed her dress, and I remember Michael interviewed her over at Daily Wire, right? I think Allie may have done it too. I think. And then
no,
this,
this is
I
not
did
one
see.
of
I did see the gal that like slept with the 500 guys over Christmas, claimed to get confirmed into the church, right?
That's
or
who
something.
he's
Okay,
talking about.
so we're talking about that one. Okay. Mercy triumphs over judgment, but notice again, what's the language here? Don't be Eve. The enemy shows up and says, did God really say? And Eve starts adding her own spin on what God said. Did God say not to touch the fruit? Is that what he said? It's not what he said. I mean, I don't know. Could have played hacky sack with the fruit. Could have tossed, played catch. I don't know what you could. I mean, God just said, don't eat the fruit. Didn't say don't look at it. Didn't say don't touch it. Just said don't eat it. And Eve started putting her spin on it. And once you do that, you're toast, right? Because you're never going to be better at putting your spin on God's thing, on what God says, than the enemy is. All right. He's the Jedi master, or the Sith master at that. All right. So mercy triumphs over judgment, but doesn't cancel the judgment. How do we know that? Is there a hell?
Yes.
So mercy did not cancel judgment, does it?
No.
It triumphs over it if you accept the mercy and have demonstrative fruit in your life that you have. Then God's mercy has canceled your judgment, correct?
Yes.
But it doesn't, has triumphed over your judgment, but the judgment is not canceled because there is a hell and there are people going there every single minute of the day, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I don't know. And when you say sexual sin, I mean, did she get right out of the church and sleep with another 500 guys on camera? Is she still dressing risque? Is she kind of trying to tone it down? Is she working out her salvation in fear and trembling, right? I'd maybe give it some time without following this person closely. I have no idea what's happening, or I can't even remember her name, so, but I would give it time. Here's the thing I would tell you to do. In general, the New Testament wants us to err on the side of mercy, to err on the side of wanting it to be true. And since none of us paid for our own grace, Christ did, we should follow suit. We should not be rooting against people's salvations, rooting against their sanctifications and justifications, rooting against them finishing their races, sitting there with like a notepad. Up, you fell down. That's a demerit. We're not hall monitors. Okay? We're not mall cops. Let's not do that. But let's not be suckers either. Now, what's that line? I don't know. I mean, a lot of those things are discussed and argued about all throughout the epistles of the New Testament. I don't know. I think we can all, let's take an extreme, a year from now. If she's, hey, I just walked out of confession and now I'm going to go do, 500 guys on video. I think we kind of know it didn't take, right? Okay. Right?
Yeah.
So there's extreme examples that are obvious. When you get outside the obvious, root for the right thing until it's obvious that it's not. Maybe the rule of thumb I would go with. which is highly subjective. I know. I'm not the Holy Spirit. It's the best I can do.
Dan T. says, should Iowa gubernatorial candidates Adam Steen and Randy Feenstra join the other three and sign Mary Bowden's pledge to call for the COVID shot to be pulled and not take any money from pharma?
Well, I wasn't even aware of this pledge. It's the first I've heard of it. Nobody brought it to me. Otherwise, I would have brought it to Adam. I'm not even sure that Adam is aware of it. Have not read the pledge, so I don't know what all it says. But in general, yeah, Adam, I can only speak for Adam because that's my candidate. He should support pulling that and not taking any pharma money. He should, yeah. But this is the first I'm hearing about any of that.
CA wants to know your thoughts on the verse in Luke where Jesus says 2 swords is enough. Should Christians find the courage to physically face the threats of today in order to secure the freedoms and land God has given us, not with hate, but with resolve and physicality? God bless.
Yeah. If it's a morally just cause. I mean, is somebody breaking into your home and threatening those things from you? Then sure. Yeah. I mean, there has to be proportional justice here. We get into just war theory. You have to have a recognized authority. You are the recognized authority under God's kingdom of your home. You are not the recognized authority necessarily of the borders of the United States of America. You might be if your home's on the border, this answer requires way more information and nuance than the question provided, though.
Next, we go to Bet Your Analyst Forgot to Ask That Question, who asks, my adult Sunday school teacher states that we should be on guard for false prophets by checking their fruit, but to not judge them or call them out by name. How can we warn others if we don't call them out?
So when I first started on WHO, there was a huge backlash because I just started calling people out by name. And so my program director, one of the only 2 times that he ever tried or thought he needed to get me to tone it down, and this was one of them. The rest of the time, he was highly supportive of what I was doing. Was like the name and name thing. I think if you just don't name names, most people are going to know who you're talking about. So, I took his word for it, went out and tried it. Instead, that blew up in my face all the more because now everybody thought I was talking about them simultaneously. All right. And so I just went back to naming names. Let's just only have the people I'm actually talking about hate me as opposed to the people I'm not. Right. But here's the thing. You better have your homework. Okay. You better have done your homework. You better be prepared for your homework to be checked, to be challenged. And if you're not, then you're not the one to be doing the name naming. So. Because the names you name, they punch back. So if you're not prepared to face that, you're not prepared to then have the fact that I named you scrutinized by the one you named or the one supporting that person, then don't get into that arena. It's not for you. Now, I will say this. A pastor should be equipped for that arena. That's part of his calling. Feed the sheep, metaphorically speaking, shoot the wolves. Got to know what a wolf is, though. Who the wolf is, where it is. So, that may not be your calling as a layman, but it's part of his as a pastor. For sure it is. Yeah, 100%.
Seth asks, is there an update on Florida's grand jury looking into the COVID jabs?
Gosh, I completely forgot about this too.
Me too, until I saw this. Yeah.
So thank you for the reset on that, and I've not heard a word. No.
Fishin' Lady asks, why is it better to have more people praying for a particular person than just a few people? For example, if I only know a few people to pray for me, but somebody else knows 50 plus, is their outcome going to be better?
Might be. I don't know. Who are the 50 people? I don't know. I mean, if I grab 50 pagans and ask them to pray for me, probably not. That are, you're not all children of God, by the way. That's a misnomer of the modern evangelical church. That's unbiblical from the Sola Scriptura church. We're not all children of God. All right. You can only become a child of God through a redemptive relationship for your sins. You have to be in covenant with God. And if your sins are unredeemed, you're not. God loves you. God loves us all, but we're not all his children. All right? I mean, the scriptures literally say right there, okay, that what Jesus did allows us to become sons or children of God. So, I mean, if you had 5 people who are really in the covenant with Christ and 50 people who aren't, who do you want praying for you?
The former.
The former, yeah. Would not the same multiplication principle apply the other way? If I've got 5, people in covenant with Christ praying for me as opposed to 50, I'd rather have 50, right?
Right.
So if the prayers of a righteous man avail much, how much would the prayers of many avail, right?
Amen.
Yeah. Again, don't look at these things through your own sinful lens of logic and understanding. In heaven, there will be people who did more for the faith than you. They'll have more crowns than you. Bible says that. But you won't feel the discontentment or jealousy that you do in a sinful state. Those things will be foreign to you in a glorified body. You'll celebrate them for what they did without being jealous yourself of the recognition they received instead of you. That's hard to understand in your current sinful state. You know why? Because you can't. You can't. You can't understand a world where everything is just multiplication and nothing subtraction or division. You can't understand a world where there is no poison pill. There's no limiting principle, because there has to be in this fallen world. Hard to understand that. And you can't, because you're not in that state yet. These were great questions.
Good.
You guys did great, man. Let's not screw it up the rest of the year. All right. All right. And my answers were shorter. I got through more of them maybe than ever before.
Way more than I thought.
All right. We're going to stick around and do overtime for subscribers for the rest of you. See you tomorrow. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.